Hello, and thank you for listening to this episode of Moore's October Rants. Today's episode is titled, People Will Perceive You Differently from What You Are. So, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, which is why I've been cranking out some quality rants. And one thing that's been on my mind is this. No matter how hard we try, we can't control how people perceive us. We can bend over backward, hoping people will see us a certain way, but at the end of the day, everyone views the world differently. Just because you want someone to see you one way doesn't mean it's going to happen. I've come to accept that I can present myself in a way I feel is true and right, and there will still be people who perceive me in a completely different way. And that's not on me. That's just how they interpret things. Everyone has their own perspective, but just because they see you in a certain light doesn't mean their take on you is correct. Especially if you know deep down what your true intentions are. In my 20s, I really started to notice the way people would use shaming tactics against me and others. They'd judge based on appearances or how someone acted when they had no idea what that person was really going through. It can feel like everyone's against you sometimes, but staying true to yourself is critical. You know your own thoughts and actions, and that's what truly matters. I remember hanging out at this Dunkin' Donuts near where I lived in my early 20s. It seemed like a cool spot to relax and chat with people. But before long, I started to realize that some folks were annoyed by my presence, no matter how friendly or nice I was. No matter how I acted, they just didn't like me being there. I took it personally for a while. I couldn't understand why I was being disliked when I thought I was doing everything right. Looking back now, I see that it wasn't really about me. People were perceiving me differently than how I intended, and that was on them, not me. I know I wasn't doing anything wrong, but it took me a while to accept that. In retrospect, hanging out there was probably one of the worst decisions I made, but you live and learn, right? As you get older, you start to see things more clearly. And part of me is glad I spent that time there because it taught me a valuable lesson. People will always see you differently than how you see yourself. And that's just how it is. I mean, look at someone like John Cena. The guy's done more Make-A-Wish visits than anyone else, helped so many kids and their families, and yet there are still people out there who don't like him. They see him in a negative light, no matter what good he does. And that's someone who's constantly in the public eye. If someone like that gets hate, what chance do the rest of us have? The real key is not to take it personally. Everybody goes through this. It's just part of life. And when you know in your heart that what people say about you is wrong, it makes it a little easier to shrug it off. Only you can define who you are, not anyone else. As I've gotten older, especially now that I'm in my 30s, I've stopped caring about acting the way people want me to. Now, I just act in a way that feels right for me. Sure, we like to say that we don't care what people think, but let's be real. It can still sting. Criticism hurts, no matter how much we try to pretend it doesn't. I used to be really affected by it, but over time, you learn what really matters and what doesn't. At some point, you just stop caring as much. What really matters is that it's good enough for you. At the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with yourself. If someone else doesn't approve, so what? It's their problem, not yours. There was this other place I used to hang out, a barbershop close to where I lived. I got to know the owner, and it seemed like a chill spot. But over the years, I started to notice the same thing happening as at Dunkin'. People were judging me in ways that didn't line up with who I really am. Even though I hadn't friends there who knew the truth, the perception others had of me was still wrong. And yeah, I still question why I kept going back. But the reality is, this kind of thing is going to keep happening. This stuff happens online too, and probably even more often. People judge quicker, and it's easier to say something nasty from behind a screen. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. There's a song lyric that sticks with me. Never listen to those who don't believe in you. And that's it. Simple and true. It's easier said than done, but it's something I'm working on. Now, I try to avoid places where people seem to judge me for who they think I am. I'm starting to set higher standards for myself, especially as I get older. Anyway, thank you for listening to this episode of the Moore's October Rants. Signing out, and have a good one, guys. Goodbye.